One suggestion that I've always given in my parenting classes is to talk to a child and about the child as if they already are the way that you want them to be. For example, I have a child who has a very hard time sharing. So when I get into the car, rather than bring 2 bottles of water that I know they'll be asking for, I bring 1 bottle of water. Most parents would say, but then they're going to fight over it. Of course they are, but he has trouble sharing. So every day I provide an opportunity to share and feel how good it is, or experience how good it feels to share. So I start the day with 1 water bottle in the car, and I usually hear that child, both of my children, Mommy, can I have some water? I usually pass it to the child who has a problem sharing first. And that seems counterintuitive, right? The other one will start crying and screaming, and I will say, there's no reason to worry. Your brother is somebody that shares. He's a sweet person who loves to share with others. He cares about you so much. And I say things like this until he actually decides he's had enough water, and I'll hear him say, here you go, Bubba, and he'll give it to him. And then there's an opportunity for me to say, see, I told you he's somebody that shares. He knows it feels good inside to share. And I'm reiterating this every single day. And that's kind of how the day starts, but this goes on all day. This goes on at dinner. This goes on at toy time. I usually will give him the toy and say, don't worry, he'll share with you. He loves to share. If I do it the opposite way and I give it to the one who has no problem sharing first, it's kind of the same thing. I'll say, you know how good it feels to share, and so does your brother. Your brother wants to share with you because he knows it feels good. He's someone that shares. This is modeled, sort of throughout the day. But this goes on even with, school-age children. For example, if you have a child that has a hard time with math, I used to use this technique when I was a teacher. My student who was struggling with math, I would see him coming down the hallway, and I would say, good morning, mathematician. What are we going to learn today? I can't wait to see what you can do. Or a child that has a hard time keeping their cool, I'll say, yesterday was tough for you, but today I've got it. I know it's going to be better for you. I know you're going to be able to keep control. I love the way that you're working on self-control. I talk to kids in a way that I want them to know that my expectations for them are high, know that even though they've let me down before, even though they've let themselves down before, it's not over. You are not who you're going to be yet. You're still in the process of learning and trying and developing. And even when I talk about my children to other people, I'm always careful that I'm using very positive words because they're hearing that, they're absorbing that, and the things that you say to them and about them are becoming part of their an internal narrative and the words for them. And I'm very honest though. I'll say this one's really struggling with his words right now, but he works really hard at it every day, and I love hearing his thoughts. I want to make sure that it's always positive, it's always portrayed as something that I understand that they are working on, whether that's a character trait or a developmental milestone for them. Always talk to your children and about your children in a way that you want them to, kind of form those belief systems about themselves. I remember when I was a teacher, there was a child that I was told that I needed to meet before the first day of school because he was ED, and that stands for emotionally disturbed. And when I met this child, he came in and he was looking down at his feet the entire time, and he was holding his mother's hand, and he wouldn't make eye contact with me. And his mother patted him on the head like he was a dog, and she said, well, this is him. This is about all he does. He's not going to look at you. He's not going to talk to you. I mean, this is literally it. I have been fighting with this kid. I've been dealing with this kid. I even tried bribing this kid before we came in here today. Didn't I promise you? She's looking at him. Didn't I promise you $1 if you talk to your teacher? Come on, get your head up. And sort of forcing him to talk in a way. But what I know about children is they almost will never do anything for a bribe. If what this child could control, it seemed like, was whether or not he spoke to somebody. And I got the feeling that there was nowhere else in his life that he had any control. Not to mention that his mother was talking about him to people, giving him this identity of someone that just doesn't speak. And so he was forming that belief about himself that he wasn't talking, that he wasn't enough, that he wasn't capable of making his own decision to speak when spoken to. And I could tell that there was a lot of pressure on this child. His mother was a professor at a very prestigious university. He was having a hard time in his early school years. And I just decided, my goal this year is to get this kid out of his shell. And I never forced it. I always respected where he was at. I would lean in and whisper to him instead of talking to him in front of the other kids. And I would say, if you would like to speak in front of the group, group, you don't have to. If you'd like to speak with me later in private, we can. If you prefer to write a note, that's okay. I would always give him multiple options. And when other kids were choosing, teams for different things, if I saw it was an area of strength for him, I would say, now he might not speak to you about this, but he will contribute something. Give him an opportunity to join your group and see if he could color or write his words. And the more that I showed that I believed in his capabilities and that I trusted his strengths in other areas, I kind of saw this child sort of blossom over time. And believe it or not, by the end of the school year, he was doing speeches in front of the class. He was organizing skits. He was doing these really amazing, highly verbal book reports, and actually became one of the most popular kids in the class that year. And I will never forget about that student, because I remember the way that he came in and the way that he left. And I would say now he's probably on the debate team or in theater or something really fantastic, because the belief that I showed in him was so high. And children will really meet you at your expectations, and my expectations of him were up here, and he really met me there. And I think that it's the same way with any child that you're working with or your own child. Be careful about the way that you talk to them and the way that you talk about them. Please subscribe to YouTube for more parenting tips, and you can follow me on joinwholeheart.com.